have in our studio today the brand new Fire Chief of Colerain Township, Chief Alan Walls. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you so much for having me.
So we're here to talk about the levy. That's going to be on the ballot. It's time to look at that. But before we do that, I want to say congratulations.
Thank you very much.
I got to see you at one of the trustees meeting at the beginning of September, installed as the new fire chief. Of course, Chief Frank Cook retired.
That's correct.
And you are the new one in charge of that position. So how has that been since you've been, it's been I think not even a month now.
It's been a little bit less than 3 weeks. It's honestly very humbling. It's a huge privilege and an honor to be your fire chief in Colerain Township. And so, I feel that over the course of my career, I had great role models and mentors who prepared me for this position. I can tell you though, it's unlike any other position I've had. And so I feel grateful though for those that I've had to help me along the way.
You started off with all kinds of things happening. You get to start in the middle of a pandemic.
Yes.
Which is exciting in ways maybe you never really wanted to experience.
Correct.
And you also get to start as we're looking toward an election with a levy to support the Colerain Township Fire and EMS. And that's what we want to talk about today. There's so many things we could talk about, but that's what we're going to focus on today.
Okay.
And so let's start out by talking about why now? Why is Colerain Township looking at this levy?
So in a nutshell, if you look at past history and where we're at now, we've gone 10 years since we've had a tax increase for the fire department in Colerain Township. And so, with cost of inflation and expenditures, those have surpassed what we bring in. The reserve has gone down. And so in the end of 2021, we'll have a deficit. In 2022, we'll have in the neighborhood of a $3.5 million deficit, which will be, a huge hit to the fire department in terms of our ability to operate the way that we do right now. And so, basically, in the year 2000, we passed a 4.34 mil 5-year renewable levy. It was renewed again in 2005, and then in 2010, it was replaced with a 5.27 mil continuous levy. And so, I think, looking at the history of being prudent with taxpayer dollars, we have stretched them as far as we possibly can. We've made cuts where we've needed to make cuts, and you could almost say it was a perfect storm, I suppose, of needing a levy, but yet the pandemic. And I think we all understand, the difficult times that we're all faced with right now, trying to manage our finances. And so if there's anything that I could stress more than anything to the taxpayers in Colerain Township, it's we have truly tried to be as prudent as we can possibly be with your dollars, and it's not something that we take lightly in terms of the need for this levy.
That's one of the questions I think people have is anytime any town has a question about funding and levies, the first question voters have is, okay, how are you handling the money already? And I know that if you watch the trustees meetings and if you watch the reports, there's talk about grants that get applied for and all kinds of creative ways that have stretched it. And really, if the last levy was approved, you said 2010.
2010.
So it's been a decade of keeping that, stretching that, making sure you've waited as long as possible before
Absolutely.
You've had to ask for more. So that's really nice to see when you're looking at that kind of request.
And for those that might wonder, that levy that was passed in 2010 was only anticipated to be a 5-year levy. And we've stretched that an additional 5 years. And so, as the fire chief, I would say I look at things this way. I'm very frugal with my own finances, and I know how important it is to make those dollars stretch. And so, being the person who oversees that budget, it's very personal to me to make sure that, we are being as frugal as we possibly can, and we're stretching it as far as we possibly can for the taxpayers, and some of which who, every penny counts. But yet I believe that we provide a very valuable service to the township that's necessary.
And actually, that's one of the things, let's talk about that. There are a lot of services that Colerain Township Fire and EMS provide that I'm not sure people know. I see a fire truck, I see
Right.
I see there's a ambulance over there. The quick response team is groundbreaking. It's a whole new concept in ways of treating addiction calls.
Correct.
And it's also award-winning. It's being copied by other towns. What are some of the services that Colerain residents might not even realize come out of this department?
So I think if you look at what we do, we could break it down into traditional services and non-traditional services. And our mission statement kind of helps define that. So traditionally, we provide first-class all-hazards response, so fire and EMS. Non-traditionally then, continuation of our mission statement is socially responsible programs, hence the quick response team, or fall prevention, or community risk reduction. And so, those are value-added services that are intended to do what we all should try and do in the world, and that's to make a difference in people's lives. And so if you look at what we've done with the quick response team, it's been modeled and copied by countless organizations across this country. It's an award-winning program that has done just that. It has made a difference in people's lives, and it's rewarding then for those who are involved in that program to receive letters from those that have seen their lives impacted positively from such a program. And so, for me, I have an elderly mother, she's 75. She just fell about 3 weeks ago. And so fall prevention is something that, for me, is personal, and therefore it's just one of those value-added services. And so smoke detector blitzes, carbon monoxide detectors, the community health coordinator program that we're going to have, or coordinator that we'll have here shortly, that we were able to get with a grant through, or with Hamilton County Public Health. And so, the things that we do traditionally and in particular non-traditionally, I think are, important to the community and helps to make a community thrive. And so, for those that may wonder about those services, they're free anytime to stop by fire headquarters. We're accessible, we're available, and we're more than happy to, have those conversations with the public about what we do and why we're there.
Absolutely. And you mentioned the partnership with the Hamilton County Public Health. Those are more ways that you stretch the budget and still manage to offer more services to Colerain Township.
Correct.
Which is fantastic. But you're right, all of these things that are preventative, fire alarms and fall safety, fall prevention, and quick response team in addiction scenarios, those can help keep families together. They can keep the disasters from happening. So hopefully those are fewer emergency calls that you have to go out and handle. I really think they're part of the quality of life in Colerain Township and what brings people there. Absolutely,
absolutely. And like I said, our mission statement clearly defines those roles and responsibilities in terms of, first-class all-hazards response and socially responsible programs to the citizens, residents, business owners, and visitors of the township with an engaged team of professionals that values involvement in our community. And so it's not just, a statement, it's just not words that are written down somewhere. It's what we do, and then our values are how we do it. So when we're looking at this particular levy, this is a 3.0 mil levy. Yes. What does that mean? If that levy passes, what does that mean for the fire and EMS services in Colerain? So in short, what it means is a continuation of the services as we know them. There's no provisions built into that for additional services, additional career people. It's just to maintain the service as we know it right now. It's keeping 5 fire stations open. It's maintaining our current staffing. It's continuing with the programs that we have, some of which are funded through grants, as in the QRT. And so they're to be as clear as I can possibly be about it, it's only to maintain current services.
Okay, that's important. Some folks will look and say, well, this isn't the time to do some new fancy thing.
Right.
This is not to do some new fancy thing. This is to maintain the fire and EMS that we know and love that exists right now.
Exactly.
All it is.
And that's exactly what it will do.
So let me ask you this. If the levy does not pass, what will we see?
So if the levy doesn't pass, then we will have to, determine the level of that shortfall, which appears to be about $3.5 million per year. That in and of itself is significant. It's not something that can be easily overcome, and not to, cause fear or panic. In essence, it'll result in closing of fire stations, decreasing staffing, cutting some of our socially responsible programs, and an increase in response times. And I'm not saying that to, cause fear or panic. I'm just being honest and transparent about what will happen.
So as we look at this, the question comes up, okay, how much exactly is that? Now we know that Jeff Weckback did all kinds of math for us on this and did all the calculations. So what does this look like? The imaginary $100,000 home, what would this levy mean for them?
So what we're looking at then is, for a $100,000 home, we're looking at $105 a year. The median home value in Colerain is about $123,000, and we're looking at $129 a year for that. And so depending upon, the cost of your home, then a $500,000 house is about $525 a year. And back it down then to a $100,000 house is about $105 per year.
And I'm going to take a moment to say that all of this information is on the Colerain.org website. Actually, I discovered that if you just type levy into the search bar, poof, you come up with a link to a page that has all kinds of information, that anything you might want to know. We are not going to cover every single of the frequently asked questions, because honestly, there's charts, there's math, there's all the details, and there's also a link right on that page to any of the trustee meetings where this was discussed in the past year. So if you want to see how this decision to put the levy on the ballot came about, you can actually go back and watch that. It's all on one page at Colerain.org. And if you it's the fastest way I think to find it is just type levy in the search bar and that page comes up, which is really great because, and I say this to say, we're talking about $129 a year. That's been broken down by month and how many cents a day it is.
Right. So
if we want to know, it's a lot less than Starbucks. So,
in a nutshell, yes, and that link is a huge resource, and as a means of transparency, we want to be open and honest about what we do with taxpayer dollars, and there's even a link on there where you can look at our budget line by line by line and see what we spend, how we spend it, and what we spend it on.
I know folks have talked about, this is a pandemic, and like you said yourself, this is a difficult time to look at things like this.
Yes.
At the same time, though, do you feel that people are appreciating more their fire and EMS services because they see the daily need for them maybe a little bit more than usual?
I suppose it sounds cliche to say that we're appreciated more. I think that people see and understand the value of what we do. But in the same breath, I understand how difficult it is financially for some, and I don't want to say otherwise because I would be short-sighted to not recognize that. And so, I think we have those defining moments in time when we have to sit and really think about things and look at our finances and how and what we value, and so I understand the yeses and the nos. I truly do.
Sure.
Those are difficult decisions that have to be made. But once again, I want to reinforce the fact that I think that we have a long-standing history of being very frugal and prudent with taxpayer dollars, and hopefully that helps those who are on the fence and looking at those things to say, that they've been open, they've been honest, they've been transparent, they've been frugal, they've been prudent. We need to maintain the service that we have.
Sure, and I think that the fact that we see you participate in so many grants as well as partnerships with other organizations to stretch things out is definitely something that helps when we look at needing to understand that. And also the fact that you have explained this is not for new projects.
Right.
This is not because you want something new shiny or a new building or anything like that. This is really just to continue what residents are already seeing.
And I can give you an example of that. So 3 of our engine companies, Engine 102, Engine 109, and Engine 103, they will be 20 years old in 2 more years. And so there are departments who at 10 years, they're in a reserve status, and at 15, they're out of the fleet. And so, with the fleet maintenance program that we have, and where I'm going with it is, there's no provision within this levy to replace those trucks that are soon to be 20 years old. And so, we'll have to think of some other innovative ways and/or wait until the time presents itself to replace those trucks. And so, as busy as we are, believe it or not, we have 3 engines that are going to be 20 years old here shortly. So once again, it's purely to maintain the current operation with no replacement or increase of anything.
That's a really good point, because we've talked about how this is maintaining surfaces, but this isn't even maintaining services with built-in replacements.
Right.
This is literally just with the vehicles you have and the buildings you have, whether they're going to need to be replaced or not. That is not built into this budget.
Right.
This is assuming we are going to keep using all the same equipment indefinitely, just because that's where this is. And I know that was to make sure you weren't asking for too high a levy at the same time that everybody had all kinds of new difficult things happening in their life at the same time.
And somebody may say, well, we see 2 new engines and a ladder here in the last 5 years, and let's address that real quick then. One of the engines that we replaced there in 2015 was a 1989. The other engine that we replaced then about a year later was a 1993. The ladder truck that we replaced was a 1991. And so, 15, 16, and 18-ish, when we replaced those 3 pieces of apparatus, we're talking about trucks that were, manufactured in 1989, 1991, and 1993. And so even those trucks, even though they've been replaced, we stretched that as long as we possibly could. And so, for those who may say, wow, we see some new trucks here lately, that they're right, but they were greater than 20 years old.
And that really makes me think of our cars, and when our cars get to that age and they don't always start. But we're talking about emergency vehicles. They cannot have a day where they're not reliable,
right,
and that they'll maybe start. So the fact that you're managing to stretch it is fantastic, but the fact that at some point they do need to be replaced, right, absolutely makes sense. These
right,
are not the sort of vehicles that you can, it's all right if it doesn't start today. It needs to start when you need it.
And so once again, just to reiterate, with the 3 mills, no replacement, but for those that have seen replacements in the last 5 years, just know that those trucks then and of themselves were greater than 20 years old. So we're trying to be as frugal as we possibly can and stretching those taxpayer dollars.
Is there anything else in particular that you want to make sure Colerain residents hear about the levy?
Get out and vote. I understand the yeses and the nos. Hopefully, for those that are on the fence when it comes down to it, with this forum, with the forum on Wednesday night, with the information that's out there, with the service that we provide, with our history, people will see the value in what we do, and I believe that they will. Times are tough, and I understand that. And I believe, though, that what we do and how we do it and the way that we do it is a valuable, necessary service, and we have stretched those dollars as far as we can possibly stretch them. And it's just unfortunate that at the point in time when we need to do something, COVID comes knocking on the door.
Sure, you did such a good job stretching it that instead of doing this 5 years ago, when you thought you'd be doing this,
right,
and there wasn't a pandemic, you stretched it so well that now we're looking at it
yeah,
in the middle of the pandemic.
Right,
Which
exactly.
is how that worked out. I do want to say that part of that Colerain.org page all about the levy mentions that they really want you to make your voice heard. If you have questions, if you're listening to this program, or if you've just seen any kind of information posted about the Colerain Township levy, that the trustees are ready to hear your input. Their email addresses and phone numbers are all right on their website. The township administrator, Jeff Mills, he wants to hear your feedback too. And I know you, Chief Allen, you want to hear their feedback too.
513-245-5732. That's my direct line.
And so if you have questions, you don't have to kind of guess. Besides looking them up, there's all kinds of information on the website, but you can go ahead and contact any of these people, and they are inviting you. This isn't just here's a bunch of information. They're inviting you to ask them your questions, give them your feedback, let them know what you're feeling about this.
If need be, I'll come to your house. We'll socially distance. I'll come to your meeting. We'll socially distance. We'll hold a fuse meeting. You can come to my office. Whatever we need to do, if there's questions or concerns about what we'll do with this 3 mil levy.
Absolutely. And that's important. These local things that we talk about that are on your ballot, when people look at their ballot, I'll just kind of spread out the conversation topic a little wider here. And folks look at their ballot and they say, there's something at the top. I don't know what to think about this. Do I need to worry about this ballot? There's a lot of information, a lot of races on your ballot that are really important below that top race. So keep reading it, turn it over, make sure you do the whole thing, because this is how you connect with your township. This is how you can support your own township and the things that are going on there. And to find out if you're registered to vote, votehamiltoncounty.org. That is the website for the Hamilton County Board of Elections. What can you do there? You can register to vote there up to October 5th. That's the last day to register to vote. You can check to see, type in your name and address and see if you're registered to vote if you're not sure. You can click on a button to see a sample ballot. If you're not sure what the races are in your precinct, what's going to be on there, you can find out ahead of time, all at votehamiltoncounty.org. So make sure you go there and check that out. The election is November 3rd. Make sure you put that on your calendar so you're ready to go. If you're going to vote in person, that's the date you need on your calendar. If you want to do early voting at the Board of Elections in Norwood, then you can put on your calendar that starts on October 6th. And that goes right through up until the day before the election. Those times and dates for each day are on the Board of Elections website, votehamiltoncounty.org. You can find all that information there. So that's a whole lot to put out there at once about the election coming up, but I want to make sure, folks, if you're watching this and you're finding out about the levy and you're getting your information so that now you're ready to be an informed voter, then the next step is to make sure that you're registered and that you know where your precinct is and that you're ready to show up and vote on Election Day. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
I appreciate this time. I'll remind folks again, Colerain.org. Just type in the word levy. You will find all the information you need. And also, folks can contact you directly and just ask you questions.
Yes. And if I may, we value the support of the community. We look forward to successfully passing the levy. But likewise, I want you to know that we will manage your dollars like it was our own.
That's really important. I feel like if there's a place to, a thought we want to leave everyone with, then that's the thought we can leave people with on that. I also want to thank you for watching this program. That means you're ready to be an informed voter about the Colerain Township levy.